true love. So, but the topic of today itself is love is not selfish. Love is not selfish. Love is not selfish. And is that supposed to be more obvious? That's supposed to be clear, actually. So everybody's supposed to know that love is not selfish. But unfortunately, in Africa today, what people teach in churches is actually that same selfishness. Most pastors, most churches, most teachings in our so-called charismatic churches today are actually promoting selfishness. Most teachings are actually propagating egocentrism. That's against what love stands for. That's directly against what God, who God is. God is love. And love is the direct opposite of selfishness and egocentrism. Meanwhile, churches that are supposed to be propagating love or talking about God, propagating and preaching God, and God is love. So they are supposed to be preaching love, preaching God. Instead of preaching love and God, they are preaching they are using God to promote selfishness and egocentrism. It is the direct antonym, opposite, of who God is and what Christianity stands for. Christianity stands for love, and that means selflessness, not selfishness, but selflessness. Christianity stands for love, and that means service for humanity, service to God, service to another, but definitely not. It's not about self or self-promotion or self-aggrandization, but that is aggrandizement. That is what we are seeing in Christianity today through these African churches. That's what we see. Now, so love is not selfish. Love is not selfish. It means that when I really get to discover love, I stop living for myself. That is a catastrophic statement for a lot of African Christians. How can I stop living for myself? The whole idea of their whole life has been about themselves. Their whole activities and everything they ever do has been about themselves. And here I come, I say, love, if you become a Christian, you don't live for yourself. In fact, as a matter of fact, one of the greatest signs that you are a Christian is when you stop living for yourself. When you begin to think less of yourself, then you are becoming more of Christian. So if you want to gauge your level as a Christian, if you want to put some parameter on how to know if you are a good Christian or not, one of those parameters is how selflessness are you becoming. So if you are becoming more selfless, then you are becoming more Christian. But if you are becoming more greedy and more desiring and more selfish and thinking more about yourself, then it means that you are becoming less Christian. So the more you are a Christian, the less selfish you are. The more you are a Christian, the more selfless you are. The more you are a Christian, the more you think less about yourself. The more you are a Christian, the more you pray less for yourself. The more you are a Christian, the more you worry less about yourself. The more you are a Christian, the less you think or worry or bother about your own life. The more you are a Christian, the more you think about other people. The more you are a Christian, the more you think about the good of others, about humanity, about God, about his kingdom, about the nation, about the society. You don't think about yourself. Love is not selfish. Love is not selfish. So love is not selfish. And what is love? Love is God. God is love. So it means God is not selfish. And if you are a believer in God, you cannot be selfish. If you know God, you will not be selfish. So anybody who knows God, the proof that he knows God is in how less selfish he is. Anybody that comes to you and say they are believers or they are pastors, you will not read selfishness in their messages. But if you go to Africa today, everything is about selfishness. A pastor could come and say, I need 10 people to give $1 billion each. 1 billion naira each. So you say that is not selfishness because he wants to build the house of God? Good. Let's agree that he wants to build the house of God. But in that same church, there are people who are hungry, who cannot afford 3 square meals. But you want to build your own ministry. Whereas if anybody in that church can afford 1 billion naira, that 1 billion naira, do you know how many people it can feed? You know how many people it can take care of? You know how many students it can take off the street? Because to take a student off the street and send them back to school for 1 year, it's only $30 you need. You know, with 1 billion naira, you can take almost of 1 million of those children. And then someone is saying, give it to me, let me use it for brick and metal. And you are saying that there are no selfishness there. What does you gain? You say, oh, but there will be a place for you to sit. No, people are sitting even now too. It's not about people sitting down or where to sit. It's about ego. To buy an airplane, you know, it costs millions of dollars. There are billions of naira. So one airplane will take 1 million children out of school. But instead of people doing that, what do? They take people's money, these same people's money, and buy themselves an airplane. So selfishness is what you say. If you hear any pastor, any Nigerian pastor talking, they are talking about the size of their church, the size of their congregation, how much they are expanding, what next they are going to build. That's all selfishness. They are not talking about how many people they feed. They are not talking about how many people they set free, how many people they send to school, how many people have been delivered from poverty, how many houses have been built for people, how many things have been done for other people. It's all about their ministry. Our ministry now has this thing. Our church now has this thing. Oh, we now have our own bank. Oh, we now is selfishness. All the talk about church, us, that is against love. It's against love. Love is not selfish. All those things are against the nature of God. And if you are selfish, you don't know God. Because God is selfless. So for you to know God, if you know God, you will know that God is not selfish. If you know God, you will know that most of your resources are supposed to be directed at taking care of other people. If you know God, you will not be taking from people, and especially from desperate, poor people, people who cannot afford 3 square meters. You are still taking tithe and offering from them. Even in the Old Testament, there was no tithe and offering from the poor. God didn't allow for the orphans, the widows, and the poor to pay tithe. Why? Because the tithe is meant to be given to them. But today, you want to take tithe and offering from even the most desperate, from everybody, because you want to build your own ministry. Is that not selfishness? Love is not selfish. It means, and if you are selfish, it means you don't know God, because God is not selfish. So one of the ways to know if somebody knows God or not, and if you go to your church, find out what your church is doing, what your church is talking about. Do they just talk about themselves? Do they just talk about their own projects? Do they just talk about their own programs? Do they just talk about their own expansion? Do they keep on pushing people to give for their expansion, for their growth, for their this and that? That is an indicator for you, or indication for you, that that is a selfish church. And if the church is selfish, it means the church doesn't know God. A selfish church doesn't know who God is. A selfish community's fellowship doesn't understand God. If a church is selfish, it means that church doesn't know who God is. If a church is selfish, it means that church does not understand who God is. If a church is if a pastor, a GO is selfish, it means that that pastor, that GO doesn't know who God is. If you listen to most of our GOs and most of those things, you listen to their speeches, you will see that it's all talking about their greatness. They want to get that or more. They are building that. They are doing this. It's all about selfishness. And God is not selfish. If they love God, they will not be selfish. Why? Because love is not selfish. If they love God, they will not be selfish, because love takes care of other people. Love will be selfless. Love will be sacrificial. Love will take care of other people. Love is not selfish, because God is not a selfish God. God is a kind God. So to know God is to be like God. To understand God is to operate like God. And who is God? God is not selfish. To love God is not to be selfish. Love itself is not selfish. It means that to believe in God is to be like God and not to be selfish, to be selfless. So knowing, because love is not selfish, Which means when you learn to love, you will learn not to be selfish. And when you learn not to be selfish, it means you are learning to become like God. And when you become like God, you are becoming like Him. It means you know Him. It means you begin to understand God and operate like God. So when we say love is not selfish, that is a pathway for you to know God and understand God. When God is not selfish and you train yourself to not be selfish, it means you are understanding the nature of God. You are becoming like God Himself. Because now you are not selfish too. You begin to understand and think like God. You begin to have the same feeling like God. That is how you know God. That is why love is one of the easiest ways for us to discover who God is. So when you love people selflessly, you are becoming like God. You are taking on the nature of God upon yourself. Love is not selfish, and that is a thing that will help you to bring you to the knowledge of who your Father is as a loving God that is not selfish. But when we are talking about churches in Africa today, all the teachings they are preaching, all their messages is pushing you and telling you on how to be greedy. Unfortunately, most of the churches in Africa right now is just teaching you about greed. They are telling you, come to church, they will be promising you, oh, you will get this, you will get that. You will get this blessing, you will get that blessing. Oh, you will come to this church will give you this miracle, that church will give you that miracle. Oh, this church has more miracle than that miracle. Oh, you come, you will get your healing. Oh, you come, you will get your breakthrough. Oh, give the money, you will beg it and multiply. Oh, this more money will come for you for this. Oh, more of this will come for you today. Oh, believe and come for this. Oh, do this. It's all making you to think more about yourself. Whereas Christianity is supposed to help deliver you from yourself. Christianity is supposed to help you become more, to become less egocentric, less selfish, more selfless. Christianity is supposed to help you to get rid of your ego. Christianity is supposed to help you to get rid of greed. But right now, the kind of churches that we see in Africa is rather teaching you greed. Even if you are not greedy before, now church is teaching you about greed. Even if you are caring about others before, now church is only talking about you and your own blessing. So you are now becoming more selfish when you become Christian. So that's why people don't know God in those churches. And a lot of those people are deceived. Because even though they are in churches, but they don't know God, and they will be shocked when they get to heaven. Because if you don't know God, the Bible says if you don't know love, you don't know God. And you cannot walk in love, there is no way you can get to heaven. Love and the knowledge of God we need a whole makeover, a whole, turnaround, a whole reconstruction of the concept of church and Christianity in Africa. Because Christianity is bringing more damage to people's mind, to people's value system. It's making us egocentric. These churches are making us egocentric. And that is not Christianity, by the way. Those are what we call Christians, but they are really paganistic centers. They are really syncretism. They are not practicing Christianity. Love is not selfish. You go, if you don't believe me, you don't need to believe me. You go and examine the teachings of your own pastor. Take 52 Sundays, the 52 Sundays in a year, and go and analyze those teachings. What is the main message about? You will see that the main message is about you. It's concentrating on you to make you to get more things, to have more things, to become more greedy, to have more things, to bless you more. It's either about you or about their church. Whereas Christianity is supposed to be you preferring others above yourself. You helping, loving others. Christianity is supposed to be teaching you how to love others, how to care for others, how to love God more. But you can look into a 10-year history of any church in Africa, and you will not see any teaching about how to love God. You will not see any teaching about how to know God. You will not see any teaching about how to understand God. You can go to churches in Africa for, for 20 years, for 30 years, and you will not hear one message on how to know God, how to love Him. That is why people are becoming more selfish. And if you are selfish, you are not serving God, you are serving yourself. You are serving idols. So most Christians, people who call themselves in Nigeria, they are actually serving idols without themselves knowing. So love is not selfish. And what does selfishness bring you to? If you are selfish, what does that bring you to? Selfishness destroys you. Either you like it or you don't like it, selfishness will destroy your life. Now, there are different kinds of destructions. Okay, for example, somebody could be selfish and become a drug addict. You can see that is obvious. You can easily see obvious destruction. He's a drug addict, he's homeless, he's lost. That is physical, obvious destruction. But you might be a pastor, a GO, a bishop. Because you are selfish, your life has actually been destroyed, but nobody will see it. Your spiritual content has been destroyed. That's why most churches in Nigeria, all these big men of God, they don't even know that they are missing it. Or maybe they know, but they cannot. They are manipulating people. Their conscience is destroyed. The fear of God is gone. They have become blind and dead spiritually. They are not even feeling that something is wrong. That is even a worse condition than to be a drug addict. That is a worse condition than to be homeless. So I'm going to show you a film right now that will tell you about what the devastating effect of selfishness. I'm going to show you, not a film, actually, it's an interview, it's a documentary. When you see this devastation that you're going to see here, is the same devastation that selfishness creates, even in the so-called Hollywood people, or in the so-called bishops and GOs and the big churches. The same effect, the same kind of result of devastation is going on in their lives, even though you don't see it. You might be copying them, you might be envying them, you might be thinking that they are good, they are doing well, but really, they are going through devastation. Let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at this video.